Hey guys, welcome to MacReddit. Today, I have compiled some of the most interesting Reddit stories for you. Let's dive into them, without wasting any time. I have been married to my husband, Henry, 33-year-old male, for 7 years, and we have 3 children together, 6M, 5F, and 4M. My husband was working in an IT company with 10 years of experience, and everything was going great. Quality family time, a handsome salary, and a satisfying marriage. Around 7 months ago, my husband received an offer from a startup that promised almost double his current salary, an executive-level position in the company, and opportunities for future growth. My husband discussed the offer with me, and I was very happy for him, because it was a significant advancement in his career. However, I had reservations regarding my husband's work-family life balance, because the job was demanding, but my husband promised that no matter what the nature of the job was, he would not let it interfere with our family life. So, my husband resigned from his previous job and joined the new one. The first month went smoothly. My husband was returning home on time, helping me with the children, and we were having a good bedtime routine. However, the next month my husband's working hours started getting longer, and now there is no work-life balance. Instead, there is only work in his life, and we are becoming more and more distant day by day. Now he often misses dinner and reaches home sometimes around midnight. Not only this, on weekends, instead of spending time with us, he is glued to his laptop. When asked what he is doing, his answer is either that he is working to meet deadlines or preparing for meetings or presentations. I tried my best to be understanding and supportive because this job was a jackpot for both our family and for my husband's career. However, over time, I started to feel like a single parent because I alone was dealing with our kids, preparing them for school, dropping them off, picking them up, telling them bedtime stories, and more. I was doing everything, and my husband was doing nothing. He was becoming a ghost, disappearing more and more each day. I tried to talk to my husband about it many times, but he always apologized and promised to maintain a balance between his work and family time. But he never did. He'll be around a little more for a few days, then something will come up at work, and he's right back to the late nights and weekend work. Last month, we had a small party planned for my son's birthday, and only a few guests were supposed to attend. Immediate family members, and a few close friends. I told my husband that I didn't expect him to miss the party. He promised that he would be there at time. However, just 1 hour before the party started, I received a call from him, and he told me that he could not attend the party because of an emergency meeting, and he asked me to handle the situation. I was devastated, and so were our children, especially our son. I had to make excuses for him, saying Daddy was really sorry and that he wished he could be there. This was the breaking point. When he returned home in the evening, I confronted him, telling him that his job was destroying our family and that he needed to fix his working hours or leave the job altogether and find another one, a more peaceful one. Instead of understanding my point, my husband got defensive, saying that I didn't understand the pressure he was under, that this job was crucial for his career, and that he was doing all of this for our family. I told him that I knew he was doing all this for our family, but at what cost? Family time. I made it clear that this job might engulf our marriage as well. We argued for hours, but our argument ended with the same promises from him that I had been hearing for the last 7 months. He promised that he would talk to his boss about reducing his working hours. I pointed out that he had made this promise many times before, but his working hours had only increased instead of decreasing. I also made it clear that if the same thing happened this time, I wasn't sure our marriage would survive. He didn't say anything after that. Just went back to his computer and started working again. It's been a few weeks since that fight, and nothing has changed. He's still working long hours, and I'm still basically raising our kids alone. I'm exhausted, lonely, and starting to resent him. I love my husband, but I can't keep living like this. Our kids miss him, I miss him, and I'm scared that if he doesn't make a change soon, our marriage is going to fall apart. So, am I the AH for demanding my husband to quit his job? OP is being a bit of an AH here for complaining too much. She knew that new startups require executive-level employees to work long hours and can be demanding. She agreed to her husband taking the job because of the high salary, but now she wants him to quit without caring about the career of her husband. So, I would rate OP 1.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. As for OP's husband, he needs to find a balance between work and personal life and not sacrifice family time for work. No matter how demanding the job is, OP must spare a dedicated time for his family. Though career is important, I must not be prioritized over family. So I would rate OP's husband 2 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to another Am I the AH? Where OP throws his drink in a gay's face when he was consistently asking him to hang out with him. Last weekend, I, a 24-year-old male, was out with my friends at a bar. It was pretty crowded, and everything was going great until a guy, let's call him Jake, started hovering around our group. He was wearing funky clothes and seemed to be a misfit. I don't judge people. He was really weird. At first, I didn't think much of it. Bars are social places, right? But after a while, he zeroed in on me and started trying to make conversation. I'm generally polite, so I chatted with him for a minute and then excused myself for the bathroom. When I returned to the place where my friends were standing, he was waiting for me, and my friends were not there. He immediately started asking if I wanted to grab a drink with him. I declined, saying I was just there to hang out with my friends. Not him, but he kept pushing, asking me why not, if I had a boyfriend, etc. I was trying to be as clear as possible without being rude, but it was obvious he wasn't getting it or didn't want to. I told him I was not interested. After a few more rejections, he suddenly grabbed my arm, pulling me closer, and said something like, "Come on, I know you're just playing hard to get. I can tell you're into me." I was really uncomfortable at this point and told him firmly to let go of my arm. However, instead of backing off, he tightened his grip and leaned in, practically whispering in my ear about how he knew I wanted him. I could feel his breath on my neck, and I started to panic. Without thinking, I grabbed my drink and threw it in his face. It was just instinct. I felt trapped and needed him to back off. He let go of my hand and started yelling at me, saying I was crazy. The bar security soon got involved. I told them he was forcing himself on me and requested them to kick him out, and they did. When my friends reached out to me, they asked me what happened, and I told them. Some of them think I did the right thing, but some of them said I might have overreacted, and a few are making fun of me and saying I seemed to be gay to him. Now, I am confused whether my reaction was appropriate. So, am I the AH here? OP is certainly not an AH here because he was being harassed, and his response is 100% justified. Such harassing people deserve this type of response. When OP clearly told him that he was not gay, that man should have let him go, but he didn't. So I would give OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale, and that guy deserves at least 4.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. My fiancé, Liam, 26-year-old male, and I, 25-year-old female, have been together for 6 years, and we are supposed to get married in a few months. Everything was going so perfectly, or so it seemed. However, last week, I discovered the reality of my fiancé and his thoughts about our relationship, and I refused to marry him. Background: I met my fiancé at college, and we have been in a relationship since then. We lived a life together, moved to another city, bought a house, and even adopted a dog. He proposed in the most beautiful way last year, and I felt on top of the world. I believed he was the love of my life, the person with whom I wanted to grow old. However, last week, I saw something that has left me shaken to my core. I was using his laptop to work on a project. My laptop had crashed earlier that week, and he offered his. He works from home most days, so his personal stuff and his work stuff all mixed together. When I was looking for a document, I saw a folder that had my name on it. So naturally, my curiosity got the best of me, and I opened it. Maybe it was something sweet, pictures of us, a wedding planning document, or so I thought. Instead, what lay inside that folder was, well, it pains me to even write out. A bunch of papers labeled for the different phases of our relationship, from dating to engaged to pre-wedding. For a second, I thought they must be some kind of journal entries. Then I opened them, realizing it was something far worse. Each document represented a series of notes he had made about me, detailing my behavior, my habits, and most disturbingly, my physical appearance. It was as if I had read some sort of bizarre report card on myself. There were lists of my strengths and weaknesses, comments on how I had changed over the years, and notes on what he found attractive or unattractive about me. Some of what he had written was innocuous, like how much he enjoyed my cooking and how great I was at my job. But there were other things that made my stomach churn. He had written that I had let myself go after we started dating, even though I have always stayed active and healthy. Comments about my weight, my hair, the way I dressed, and even the way I talked. He had to tell me how my spark was gone, how he missed the thrill of when we first got together. The most offending part was one in which he had rated me on various parameters: looks, intelligence, personality, on a scale of 1 to 10. He had also compared me against other women he knew or had dated in the past. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was as if I were some kind of project he was managing, not a person he loved. But that didn't end there. As I scrolled down further, something worse showed up. Screenshots of chats between him and his friends, discussing me in the most demeaning manner, making fun of my body and my habits. And he was joining in. They talked about how he was settling by marrying me, how he could do better, and how he should have played the field more before committing. He even joked once that he was taking one for the team because he married me, even saying in so many words that I was the best he could do at the time. I felt like vomiting. I couldn't believe that the man whom I thought I knew so well would say these things about me. How could he think this way and still ask me to marry him? How could he look me in the eye every day and act as if all was fine? I reached out to my fiancé, told him what I had discovered on his laptop, and asked him if he had such negative thoughts about me, why he was wanting to marry me. I said that he didn't need to settle by marrying me and suggested that he marry a girl he wants. OP's refusal is 100% justifiable, and she did nothing wrong. She should be grateful that she learned about the reality of her fiancé before the marriage. Therefore, she deserves 0 out of 5 on the scale. OP's fiancé is the type of person who treats women as objects and does not consider them human. He is a big jerk and deserves 5 out of 5 on the scale. Let's now move on to another Am I the Butthole, where OP suggests to her best friend that he should break up with his girlfriend, who is always talking about her ex-boyfriend. Now OP's best friend's girlfriend is mad at her. I, 29-year-old female, have been best friends with James, 28-year-old male, for years. In fact, we were classmates in elementary school. He broke up with his ex-girlfriend about a year ago and entered into a relationship with another girl, Harper, 27-year-old female, around 5 months ago. She has a bubbly personality, always seems happy, and is generally someone who can get along with anyone. However, she has a massive problem, which is why I suggested to James that he break up with her. Her problem is that she cannot stop talking about her ex-boyfriend Henry, 27-year-old male. I'm not exaggerating when I say it's at every single gathering we have. Be they birthdays, dinners, casual hangouts, game nights. No event is safe from the endless stories about Henry. It started innocently enough, like a casual mention here and there, but over time it's gotten out of control. It started innocently enough, like a casual mention here and there, but with time, it has run amok. When the first time she mentioned her ex-boyfriend, I didn't think much of it. At that time, we were out at a bar, and she was trying to tell us about this great trip she took to Europe with her ex-boyfriend. Sound fun, right? Okay, so she goes on for at least 20 minutes about how Henry planned it, how much fun they had, how he knew all the secret places in Paris that only locals go to. You get the idea. No big deal, just a story. But then she would just keep bringing him up in almost every conversation. I caught that, but at first I thought maybe it was just me being overly sensitive or something. Soon though, our other friends started making comments about it, and you'd see at the table every time she would launch into another story about Henry, these looks being exchanged like, oh boy, here we go again. And it wasn't just casual mentions, full-on stories of how Henry did this, how Henry thought that, how Henry was so good at planning things, how Henry was the best cook ever. It felt as though we were all dating Henry by proxy. James is a really laid-back dude. He's not one to get jealous that easily, and he's pretty secure in himself. But even he started to feel a little weird about it. You could just tell he was uncomfortable when she would go on one of these Henry tangents, but he'd usually just kind of laugh it off or try to change the subject. I didn't want to overstep, but I could tell it was bugging him. But really, the final straw was actually on the night we went out for our friend Sarah's birthday dinner. We were all out at this nice restaurant, having a good time, and then Harper got on this thing about some Italian restaurant she had been to with her best friend. She wouldn't stop gushing about how Henry knew the best wine to order, how he spoke a bit of Italian and charmed the waiter, and how they had the most romantic evening ever. Mind you, she's saying all of this right in front of James, on a night that's supposed to be about celebrating Sarah's birthday. The whole table went silent. and the tension in the air was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. He pulled me aside after dinner and just asked me if I noticed how much Harper talks about her ex. I told him that not only me, all of our friends noticed this, and it was an inside running joke in our friend group. He definitely wasn't happy about it, but he did end up thanking me for my honesty. Then he asked me what he should do. I said, breakup is the only option, and told him that he must get rid of the girlfriend who is obsessed with her ex-boyfriend. He brought it up with Harper the next day. She got super defensive and accused James of being insecure. She said that she was just trying to share her life experiences, and Henry was such a big part of her past. So of course, he comes up. James tried to explain that it is not a matter of her having a past, but more a matter of the fact that she talks about her ex-boyfriend as if he is still the gold standard for relationships, which makes him uncomfortable. He also told her that if she didn't stop bringing up her ex-boyfriend, he might have to part ways with her. Harper did not take this well, and in the evening, she texted me furious that I put ideas in James's head and made her look bad in front of him. She told me that I was being petty and jealous since she and James are happy. I tried to make it clear that that wasn't at all the case, and that I was just trying to be honest with James because he had asked me, but she wouldn't listen. She said that I was trying to sabotage her relationship and that I needed to apologize to her. Now, James is in an uncomfortable position, and our friend group is split down the middle. Some think that I should have just kept my mouth shut and left James to his own devices, while others feel, as I do, that Harper was so wrong in what she did, and something needed to be said. Now, I am confused whether I am wrong or right here, so am I the jerk here? Though Harper's behavior is not justifiable, and her bringing up her ex-boyfriend is very awkward, OP overreacted by suggesting his best friend break up with her. He didn't even hint at it. So, I would give OP a 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. As for James' girlfriend, she's really a big AH for being obsessed with her ex-boyfriend. If he was so good, why did she break up with him? She needs to learn to move on. So, I would give her 4 out of 5 on the AH scale. I, 34-year-old female, have been married to my husband, Oliver, 36-year-old male, for 8 years. We have 2 kids, 5M and 3F. My husband's older sister, Jane, 39-year-old female, has always been a bit of a free spirit, never one to settle down. She moves from one job to another, has lived in different cities, and generally does her own thing. 2 years ago, Jane sent a bombshell when she announced that she was expecting a baby. The father was some guy she had been casually seeing for several months, though the two of them were not actually in a committed relationship. Despite all this, Jane decided to keep the baby and raise him by herself. I was supportive despite my concerns because of her history of being somewhat irresponsible and impulsive. After giving birth to her son Max, she relocated back to our hometown to be closer to the family, but she has been struggling, constantly overwhelmed, exhausted, complaining about how hard it is to be a single mom. Literally, every time we see her, she is either on the verge of tears or completely frazzled. She often drops off her son, who is just 1-year-old, at our house, sometimes with little or no notice. My husband and I have been doing our best to help out, but it is becoming increasingly difficult to manage our lives while taking on much of the responsibility of co-parenting her son. A few days ago, my sister-in-law showed up at our house, once again distraught. She started complaining, telling me about how hard it is to be a mother and how she feels she is losing herself. I tried to be understanding, but finally, after listening to her complain for what felt like the 100th time, I snapped. All I said was that I loved her, but she should have thought about how hard it would be to raise a child on her own before deciding to keep the baby. I said that now it wasn't fair for her to expect everyone else to pick up the slack because she had made a choice without thinking about the consequences of it. She looked devastated. She started to cry and told me that I was judging her and being cruel to her. She felt that I, of all people, would understand because I, too, am a mother, and it was uncalled for to hear from me that she had made a mistake. Teary-eyed, she left my house, and now she hardly speaks to me. My husband feels I was harsh, yet at the same time, he understands my frustration. My parents are furious with me too. They say I should have been more considerate. I have been thinking about it a lot, and I feel deep inside that I should not have offended my sister-in-law. At the same time, I knew she was having a tough time, but I needed her to see some things as they play out in practical life. Being a parent is not easy, and while I understand her plight, I don't think it's right for us to always bail her out every time she cries her eyes out. I have my family to look after, and I am growing resentful that we are being pulled into her mess. Now, the whole family is divided. Some feel that I stepped out of line and that I should apologize to Jane, while others feel she needed to hear it, even if it was cruel. I am torn because I love my sister-in-law. Yet at the same time, I also feel she needs to acknowledge her choices. AITAH for telling my sister-in-law that if she wasn't ready for the responsibility, then she shouldn't have kids? OP is not an AH here, but she could have been more considerate to her sister-in-law because she is struggling with raising her baby. So, I would rate OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. As for OP's sister-in-law, she is an AH for having a baby when she knew she cannot raise him. So, I would give her 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to another Am I the AH, where OP pressure his pregnant ex-girlfriend to pay off his debt. Well, I'm looking for some perspective here. Recently, I, 30-year-old male, broke up with my girlfriend Clara, 28-year-old female, after she admitted she got pregnant with another guy's baby. In fact, this was a big shock to me because she had always insisted that this guy was just a friend. We'd been together for almost 3 years, and at no time in that period did I ever suspect that she was cheating on me. We had even talked about marriage, kids, and a lot of things that now meant nothing as she dropped the bombshell of pregnancy on me. Matters only got worse as Clara and I had shared a credit card over the last year. It was supposed to be for joint expenses like groceries and bills. Over time, though, it started to rack up pretty serious debt. She had used it for personal purchases too, stuff like clothes and makeup and a new phone she just had to get. We had always agreed on the issue of splitting the payments, but now that the balance is sitting at around 120,000 pesos, about $2,200. After the breakup, I tried to cut ties with Clara as much as possible. The harassing calls from the credit card company, however, made the debt reality something I had to address. I contacted Clara, hoping she was responsible enough to take care of her part of the debt. I explained to her that I couldn't afford to pay all of it myself, and she needed to step up and pay what was owed by her. Her response? She said she couldn't pay because all her money was going toward her pregnancy and preparing for the baby. I understand that a baby is expensive, but at the same time, I find it unfair that she has left me hanging with the debt. I tried reasoning with her, explaining how we both agreed to use the card and that she should be responsible for her part. Instead, she did something else entirely, turning the tables on me. Clara justifies this by referring to the stress it is causing her during her pregnancy, stating it is affecting her health, and how selfish it is of me to demand money from her when she is having such a difficult time. She further went on to say that if I was mature and wanted to be the bigger person, I would agree to meet her new boyfriend and discuss the debt with him. To wit, he was willing to help her financially, but he wanted to understand the situation first. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It gives me the creeps even to think about sitting with the guy she cheated on me with, asking him for money. I feel I shouldn't have to involve him at all. Clara is the one who owes me money, not him. But at the same time, I need that money to pay off the debt, and options are running out. I do not want to appear petty or desperate, but I also don't want Clara to get off scot-free. My friends were split on what to do. Some said I should at least meet with her boyfriend and hear him out, that if he was willing to help, then take the money and be done with it. Others still think that I ought to keep pressing Clara directly and refuse to involve her boyfriend at all. They say it is her responsibility and that I should not have to deal with the guy who caused this whole mess in the first place. So, now I'm in a catch-22. Do I swallow my pride, meet with her boyfriend, and try to settle this? Or do I keep pressing Clara for payment, knowing that will make things 1,000 times more stressful for her being pregnant? AITAH for refusing to have to mess with her boyfriend and demanding my ex-girlfriend pay me directly, even if this makes me look like the bad guy? OP is not an AH because her ex-girlfriend is responsible for paying her debt, not the guy with whom she cheated on OP. If these demands are really stressful for her, she should pay OP's money, or if her new boyfriend is willing to pay, she should talk to him without involving OP. It seems she is asking OP to meet her new boyfriend to make him uncomfortable, thinking that OP would not ask for the money. So, OP is not an AH, and I would rate her 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. OP's ex-girlfriend is a big AH and deserves at least 3 out of 5 on the AH scale. My sister Mia, 29-year-old female, and I, 27-year-old female, have always been super close. Grew up really close, and although our personalities are fundamentally different, we always had one another's backs. I've just always been the quieter, more reserved, while with my sister being the outgoing social butterfly that brightens up whatever room she walks into. Of course, with time, our lives did take divergent paths, yet still very close. Or at least I thought. I met my fiancé, Daniel, 29-year-old male, about 2 years ago. Daniel is an amazing man in every possible way. He's kind, clever, and very sensitive. From the moment I introduced him to my family, they took an apparent liking to him, especially my sister. She would always tell him what a good boyfriend he was, and they got on great. It was all seeming okay, and when Daniel proposed last year, I felt I was going to be on cloud 9. She was among the first people I called, and she was overjoyed for us, or so she allowed me to believe. A few months later, she became engaged to her boyfriend Jake, a 32-year-old male, and I was genuinely happy for her. She threw herself into wedding planning, and it became pretty apparent that her wedding was going to be a big elaborate affair. I was very happy for her. However, as time passed, I started noticing her changing behavior. A month or so ago, my sister asked my fiancé to run an errand. When asked why not her fiancé, she said that her fiancé was too busy with work, and she needed a guy's perspective on some things. My fiancé, ever eager to please, agreed in a snap. When they came back, he was a little standoffish, but when I confronted him about it, he chalked it up to tiredness. A few days later, my fiancé sat me down and told me something that literally devastated me. During the time that they spent together, my sister had informed him of something that utterly hurt me. That early in our relationship, I had been unfaithful to him. She told him that I had confided in her about an indiscretion with an ex, but she was just telling him now, because she felt he deserved to know the truth before we married. My fiancé was shocked, so hurt, just plain bewildered. He knew not what to make of it. I was utterly horrified because I have never been untrue to my fiancé, and for my very sister just to lie about something so serious was the unthinkable. I rang my sister, confronting her with what she had told to my fiancé, but first she denied it all until I pressed her hard, then said yes, she had lied. Her explanation? She responded by telling me that she was testing Daniel in case he came to me about it, and for our own good. I was furious. I told her that what she had done was cruel and manipulative, let alone a breach in my trust. My sister still didn't seem to grasp the seriousness of what she had done. She kept saying she was trying to protect us, and if my fiancé really loved me, he would have confronted me about it sooner. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Essentially, I told her that I wanted nothing to do with her, until she could apologize and understand the damage she had caused. Ever since then, I avoid my sister. My parents found this out, but they were also angry with my sister. But because of family unity, they have been pushing me all this time to attend her wedding. They think I should just let go since family is family, and this would cause a dent if I couldn't make it. But how could I possibly let go of this? My fiancé has been supportive, saying he'll support whatever decision I make, but I see the pain in his eyes. He is still very much shaken by my sister's lies, and quite frankly, who can blame him? We have tried to move on, but to be able to stand at my sister's wedding, acting like all is well, just seems impossible to do. The wedding is in a couple of weeks, and I am just so divided. Part of me wants to just go to keep the peace, but part of me just can't get around my feelings of anger and betrayal. My sister hasn't really apologized. She seems to think this is just some sort of bump in the road, and that I'll get over it eventually, but I don't know that I will. So, am I the jerk here? OP is not the AH. OP feelings of betrayal and her decision to not attend her sister's wedding are full-on justified because her sister lied about something as serious as cheating. Now OP's sister is not even ready to apologize for her mistake and is thinking that what is did is not a big deal, which is hindering OP from moving on and forgiving her sister. OP's sister is a big AH for being so careless and in fact selfish. So, I would give OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale and would rate OP's sister 2.5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to another Am I the Butthole scenario, where OP cut off all ties with her best friend because she tries to sabotage OP's relationship with her boyfriend. My best friend, Lily, 31-year-old female, and I, also 31-year-old female, have known each other since we were kids. We went through all of school from kindergarten to graduating high school together, then moved to the same city after college. We seemed to be inseparable. which is why I considered her more like a sister than just any normal friend. It was one of the most crucial relationships in my life, and I never thought anything could ever happen that would somehow come between us. However, I proved to be wrong. About a year ago, I started dating my boyfriend, Tom, 32-year-old male. My boyfriend literally has everything one can want in a partner: kind, considerate, supportive. Within days after our first meeting, we got serious. My boyfriend and my best friend got along well too, or at least that is how it had felt. I couldn't have been happier, seeing the two most important people in my life get along great. However, after some time, when my relationship with my boyfriend kept getting stronger, I did feel changes in Lily's behavior. One day, she commented about my boyfriend, which unsettled me. She said, "Are you sure Tom is the right guy for you?" It blew me off, and I told her that I had no doubt about it and moved on. But this question, or similar ones, would become more frequent and pointed after that day. A few days later, we went out for drinks, and Lily started talking about my ex-boyfriend, Jake, whom I had briefly dated a couple of years ago. She just brought him up out of nowhere and said how much fun we used to have together. That was weird, especially since I hadn't spoken to my ex-boyfriend in years and didn't have any feelings for him anymore. I changed the subject, but she just wouldn't cease bringing him up, almost as if she was planting the seed in my head. A few weeks later, things began to take a turn. I went out of town for a work conference, and one of those nights I was away, Lily called and sounded upset. She said there was something going on that she really needed to talk to me about. I pressed her to tell me what the matter was, and after some hesitation she said, "I've been thinking a lot about you and Tom, and I don't think he is right for you. I think you're making a mistake." I was taken aback and at the same time furious, but I kept calm and asked her why she felt that way, and all she could say was that she had a bad feeling about my boyfriend. She could not give me any concrete reasons, just that she did not think he was the one for me. I told her I knew she was worried, but that I was happy with my boyfriend and she didn't need to worry about it, so she dropped it. But the conversation did leave me a little uneasy. The bombshell actually came within days, and that one did hit me right at the core. My boyfriend and I were out having dinner when he told me something like some weird message from some person on social media had come his way, like some sort of fake account or something, claiming that I got caught cheating on him with my ex-boyfriend. I was horrified and immediately denied it. I hadn't spoken with Jake in years and had absolutely no idea where this was coming from. Tom believed me, but it was just all so upsetting. We tried to blow it off. Perhaps it was just some random troll trying to cause drama. But for some reason, it wasn't sitting right with me. The next day, I was chatting with another friend, Megan, 30-year-old female, whom Lily and I had been friends with for quite a while. I told her about the weird messages my boyfriend had been receiving. After listening to this, Megan turned white as a ghost. She was a little tentative to begin with, but said she had overheard a conversation a while back at a party between Lily and another mutual friend. Megan said Lily had been saying how she didn't like my boyfriend, thought that I was better off without him. What really surprised me, however, was when Megan told me that Lily was making jokes about how she could break us up anytime she wanted. My heart had just sunk, and I didn't want it to be the truth. But suddenly, all those comments, the constant mention of Jake, that weird message, it all just added up to Lily. My stomach went queasy. How could my best friend, my only wholeheartedly trusted person, pull something like this? I knew I had to have it out with her. So I called Lily and said that I wanted to meet her. We met in the evening. I asked her if she had anything to do with the messages that my boyfriend had been getting. She initially denied, but when I brought up what was overheard by Megan, she piped down. Later, way later, she finally admitted to sending the message. She said she had done this because she was concerned for me and did not want to see me hurt. She said she thought if she could get Tom to question the relationship, I would then see he wasn't right for me. I went into shock. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked her how she could do such a mean thing, and she kept on saying she was trying to protect me. Yet, all that I felt was betrayal. The most trusted person had gone behind my back, trying to sabotage the relationship. I told her that we cannot be friends anymore. Since then, she has been calling, texting, apologizing, and begging for me to forgive her. But I really don't count on answering. I want to ask Redditors whether I am an AH for cutting ties with my former best friend. OP is certainly not an AH, and her decision to cut off her best friend is 100% justified because OP's friend went behind her back and actively tried to sabotage her relationship. Her so-called concerns for OP cannot justify this behavior. No matter if it's a friend or best friend, you must respect boundaries. So, I would rate OP 0 and OP's friend 3.5 out of 5 on the scale. My 27-year-old female little sister, Lily, 25-year-old female, had been my best friend since childhood, and we shared everything from clothes to secrets. But one secret, that I was once assaulted by her fiancé Daniel, 29-year-old male. And when I shared it with my sister, she accused me of trying to sabotage her relationship out of jealousy and uninvite me from her engagement. Background. I have known my sister's fiancé long before her. I met him at a party during my junior year of college, and it's been roughly about 8 years since then. We met at a party where I had gone with a few friends. By the end of the evening, most of my friends had either gone home or were too drunk to even realize what was occurring. I wasn't much of a drinker, but I had had 2 beers to lighten up. I remember talking to Daniel for a long period of time. He seemed nice enough, and we flirted a bit. But then, after I excused myself to go to the bathroom, things went dark. When I wake up, I found myself in one of the bedrooms, and Daniel was there. By the state of my clothes and the way I felt, I knew something horrible had happened. I immediately accused him, and he said, "You were into it." But I wasn't. I had never given my consent. At that time, I was very young and very scared, so I didn't know how to act or what to do with my feelings. So, I just escaped from there. I didn't tell to anybody, neither my friends nor my family. I buried this deep and tried to move on with my life like nothing happened, but it haunted me for years afterward. Fast forward about 3 years ago, when my sister introduced her new boyfriend into the family, and I could hardly breathe as I saw him. It was Daniel, the same Daniel who violated me. I felt sick, but I didn't say anything because my sister was so happy, and a part of me actually convinced myself that maybe it wasn't as bad as I remembered. Maybe I had overreacted. I kept my distance from him as much as I could. We weren't close, but I tolerated him for my sister's sake. She was madly in love, and I didn't want to ruin that for her. I thought I could just let it remain buried, allow her to live her life, and never let it come up again. But with their relationship taking a serious turn, anxiety began to overwhelm me. I started having nightmares of going back to that night, every family gathering when Daniel was present. I felt physically ill. Then a month ago, my sister called and said Daniel had proposed, and they were having a big engagement party. It was like my stomach dropped to the floor. I knew I couldn't keep this inside anymore. I knew I couldn't let her marry the man who had assaulted me. So, I asked her to go out for coffee a week before the engagement party. I was a nervous wreck. When we sat, I told her everything. About the night I met Daniel, what happened, how it has been eating me alive for years. I did expect her to be shocked, maybe angry. What I did not expect was her reaction. My sister didn't believe me. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're lying. You just want to ruin this for me." I was heartbroken. She stormed out of the cafe and blocked me on everything. The next day, my parents called me furious. Apparently, Daniel had already spun a story that I had always been jealous of him, and that I was trying to sabotage their relationship. My parents took their side and told me that I needed to let the past go and stop making up stories to hurt my sister. I tried to defend myself, but nobody listened. The engagement party took place without me, and I haven't spoken to my sister since then. I am not sure whether I did right or wrong by revealing the secret that I was assaulted by her fiancé. So, am I the jerk? OP is not an here, and OP's telling her story is 100% justified. Denying the truth for the sake of preserving family harmony would have continued to harm OP. So, I would give OP 0 out of 5 on the scale. As for OP's sister, she's being an for not taking OP seriously and accusing her of trying to sabotage her relationship. So, I would give OP's sister 3.5 out of 5 on the scale. Let's now move on to another Am I the Butthole, where OP refuses to let her boyfriend move in with when he quit his job without discussing with her, telling her before, and without taking her in confidence. I, 26-year-old female, have been in a relationship with my boyfriend Josh, 27-year-old male, for 3 years. For the first time, we met in college, and after a few months of friendship, we entered into a relationship and soon moved in together in senior years. After our graduation, we decided to stay apart for some time while we saved up money and tried to get an idea of what path each should take. We did so before the next big step. I started off as a marketing manager in a startup company, while my boyfriend began his career as a software developer in a tech firm. Things were going fine. We liked the independence with each other, although at most weekends we would end up seeing each other. Around 1 year ago, we again started talking about moving in together again. We both were making decent money, and splitting expenses was one of those things that sounded really appealing. I was excited, but wanted to wait a few months until I get a promotion at work that I had been working very hard for and would be more financially secure. However, my boyfriend began to become more and more insistent for me to move in right away. He used to talk about how much money we would save, finally getting a place that felt like ours, and how much closer we would become as a couple. I loved him and wanted it to happen, but I kept asking for just a little more time, telling him how important this promotion was to me. He said he understood, but I knew he was frustrated. Fast forward to 3 months ago, my boyfriend calls me out of the blue one afternoon while I was at work and told me that he had quit his job. Well, of course I was shocked. He gave no warning that he was unhappy. He never discussed the decision with me. Nothing. He just quit. He said it was because he could not handle the stress anymore. The work environment was toxic, and he felt drowned. I could understand the part about the stress. But then again, I was more hurt because he didn't tell me about that stuff and just quit. We talked long about that night, and I tried to be understanding. I offered to help him update his resume, search for new jobs, and even suggested he take some time off to recharge. I was worried about his future, but he wasn't, and he suggested we should move in together, saying he needed my emotional support at that difficult time, and that we would figure out his next step together. I was floored. I had just gotten my promotion, and though I made more now, I wasn't prepared for supporting 2 people financially. I delicately explained that the best thing wouldn't be to move in together, at least until he got a new job or had some kind of plan. That's when things took a turn. My boyfriend was really upset, and he said I was abandoning him when he needed me most, that I didn't believe in him, that if I really love him, then I would get him through this rough patch and allow him to move in with me. He told me that it was only temporary, and he would find a new job soon. I told him I love him, want to help, but we must be realistic. I couldn't shoulder all the rent and bills myself. For days we argued. He said I valued money more than him, that I was selfish and did not understand his struggles. I told him that I was trying to be supportive, but that I couldn't just put myself in a financially risky situation without some sort of plan. What really made the whole thing break for me was when he showed up at my apartment with all his stuff packed and said that he was ready to move in. I was just speechless. I had never agreed to that before, and it felt like he was just steamrolling over my boundaries. I told him no. I said we really needed to talk it through, that I couldn't just take him in without any discussion, especially after he had quit his job without warning. He left that night, furious, and I haven't seen him in person since. He has been staying with friends, and while we have texted, it's mostly been arguments. His friends have been messaging me too, and they do not have a problem calling me cold-hearted, telling me I should have supported my boyfriend when he was clearly having a tough time. My friends are divided. Some think I have done the right thing, did need to set boundaries, while others think I should have been more understanding and allowed him to move in temporarily. I am totally confused whether I did the right or wrong, and I don't know what I should do next. So am I the jerk here, and what should I do? OP is not an AH here for setting healthy boundaries for her emotional and financial well-being. So I would give OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. As for OP's boyfriend, he is being an AH here for forcing his decision on her and demanding OP to help him financially. There is nothing wrong with helping one another in a relationship, but taking someone for granted and stepping on others' boundaries cannot be justified. If OP was feeling stressed and he wanted OP to help her, he must have discussed her leaving the job with her first. So, I would give OP's boyfriend 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. I, 27-year-old female, have been dating my boyfriend Atlas, 29-year-old male, for 1.5 years. We come from different cultural backgrounds. I am an Indian, and he is an American. We never really had huge issues pertaining to that, but then there's this always underlying tension when it comes to cultural differences, more so when we're around his friends. Last weekend, my boyfriend invited me to a small get-together with his friends, whom I already knew. They are nice guys, but they have a tendency to make jokes about things they do not understand, especially my culture. They would say things like, "Do you have an arranged marriage waiting on you?" And, "Does mommy and daddy get upset with you if you don't have curry for dinner every night?" It's always in humor, but sometimes these things get irritating to hear. Anyway, at that party, things started off fine. We were drinking, talking, the vibe was good. But then after a while, one of my boyfriend's friends, Jake, started making comment on my culture. Trying to be funny, he asked me if my family would disown me for dating out of my race. I could have laughed it off, but he kept going into these jokes about dowries, arranged marriages, and how my parents probably had my wedding all planned out behind my back. It hurt, but I didn't say anything at first. Then he joked that my family should be so disappointed that I wasn't the good Indian daughter they had wanted me to be. It struck a nerve. It was an issue with which I had always struggled myself, keeping my culture and living my life as I wanted it. So I looked at my boyfriend, hoping that he would step in or at least have something to say, but instead, he laughed along with his friends. I tried to brush it off again, and then my boyfriend added, "She is probably just too sensitive about all this. You know how they are about their traditions." That was when I reached my breaking point. I felt he was taking away from me and placing me in the same bracket as his friends for a joke. I stood up, took my things, and just walked away without saying a word. When I came home later, he had 100 texts asking what the hell was wrong with me and why I had to make a scene. He said I overreacted to a harmless joke and that I had embarrassed him in front of his friends, adding I should be used to these comments by now, since how many times we've been with his group. I told him this, to which he replied that I was being too sensitive, needing to learn how to take a joke. He hasn't spoken with me since then, and now I am stuck thinking maybe I overreacted by walking out. So, Reddit? AITAH for leaving after my boyfriend and his friends made fun of my culture? Could I have been in the wrong, or was I right to stand up for myself? OP is certainly not an AH. Her boyfriend's friends repeatedly made offensive and racist comments about her culture. Her boyfriend, who should have stood up for OP, also joined his friends and labeled her too sensitive. It is not acceptable at all, and in a relationship, it is unimaginable that a partner mocks the other in front of others. It is really a toxic relationship, and I don't think OP is in the right place. As for rating, I would give OP 0 out of 5, and OP's boyfriend 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to another AmItheAsshole, where OP refused to let her now homeless sister move in with her because she ignored her warnings about her toxic husband. My 29-year-old female's sister, Emily, 35-year-old female, were close growing up, as our household was pretty difficult, so we learned to lean on each other a lot over the years. Through everything, I would say we have always had each other's backs until recently. Emily married her husband, Mike, 36-year-old male, about 7 years ago, and right from the start, I haven't liked that man because of his controlling and manipulative nature, and I would even go to say he is emotionally abusive. However, my sister always came to his defense, saying that is just the way he was, and that he was a good provider. I tried talking with her about it a million times over the years, telling her that his behavior was not normal, that she deserved better, but she always blew me off. About 2 years ago, things started getting worse. My brother-in-law lost his job, and instead of picking himself up and finding something else, he kind of just spiraled. He got really bitter and started taking it out on Emily and the kids, 6F and 4M. I know for a fact that he has never been physically violent, but he yells and puts her down in front of the kids. He controls their finances to the last dollar and cent so that Emily doesn't have anything to say about anything whatsoever. Yet, she continued putting up with him. Every time I brought it up, she would tell me I didn't understand. They just had to get through this rough patch. I kept my distance after a while because it was exhausting trying to convince her to leave when she wouldn't listen. Well, last month, it reached the lowest ebb. Mike took out this huge loan without telling her and blew the money on God knows what. And now they really are in serious debt. He refuses to get another job and blames Emily for everything, saying she spends too much on the kids but in reality, she barely buys them anything outside of essentials. Now, they face the very grim prospect of losing the house, as they cannot make the payments. Last week, my sister called me, crying, saying she couldn't take anymore. She was finally ready to leave Mike, but needed a place to stay for a little while until she could figure things out. I really felt sorry for her, but the thing is that I warned her for years this would happen. I told her time and again that Mike was toxic, and she needed to leave before things got worse. She never listened, and now it's all blown apart. She's expecting me to pick up the mess. I live in a small duplex with my boyfriend. We can fit her and her kids in, but it would be absolutely disruptive in our lives, and I don't want this to happen. Moreover, deep inside, I am resentful because she ignored my practical advice when I suggested her to part ways with her husband. Had she listened to me, she would not have been facing all this mess. So, I told her that I couldn't take her in, not now at least, and that maybe she should look into some shelters or other resources for women in those situations. I even told her that I could help her find a lawyer so that she could get the legal aspect of this sorted out. But that wasn't what she wanted to hear. She began to get upset, saying things like how I was abandoning her at the worst possible time. She said I was selfish, and that family is supposed to be there for each other, especially at times like this. Now, I am receiving angry calls from my parents, who live in Vermont while my sister and I live in New York. They say that I am cold and heartless for not opening my home to my sister and her children. Initially, I tried to make them understand that it was not possible for me, but they continued to insist. So, last week, I told them that if they were so merciful, they should invite her to their home, or help her financially. Since then, my parents have been angry with me, and I have not received any calls from them. Now I am confused whether I am wrong or right, and don't know what to do. So, am I the AH here? And please also give me some practical advice. OP is not at all an AH. She has every right to set her boundaries and is not obliged to disrupt her own life for her sister, especially when she has repeatedly warned her sister about the consequences of staying in a toxic relationship. OP's sister and parents are being demanding and entitled. OP is right in protecting her own peace while offering her sister alternative solutions. So, I would give OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale, and her sister deserves 2.5 out of 5. OP's parents are also a little bit AH, so I would give them 1 out of 5 on the AH scale. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye. See you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.